This is my life, connecting with family and friends through music for the past 30 years. I'm Angel Ledezma, and this is As We Go Along. Thanks for having us in your home, Douglas.
Oh, thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the fish.
Yeah, it was great.
We had a lot of fun making it. Before I ask you the tough questions,
Yeah.
I'd asked you earlier about bringing out any kind of ephemera you wanted to show, or that you had that you'd like to share, in particular anything with our old band We Reverse.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first time I'm seeing this pic. So I think this might bring up a few things. Oh, dear. Okay.
That's kind of a random, that's not a comprehensive bunch of, I think that was just loose pictures lying around, and we just threw them in there to make sure they wouldn't get destroyed.
Now here I am wearing a watch, which see, I don't do watches anymore. And this I believe was at Attica, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, recording. Yeah.
Because we were
with Chucky Cheetah.
Yeah, at the old Attica. Which do you have any memories of working at it? I mean, you worked there quite a bit, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, Attica was a real staple foundation of a place. Almost every band around at that time in the 90s was recording with Chuck at that studio. So, yeah, we did a lot of stuff. Actually, 8 Bark recorded some of our last stuff with him.
Right.
In there. And, yeah, almost all the bands around, Underdog bands, other bands were recording with him. That place was great. Chuck was a wizard. And at a price us cheapos could afford.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it was definitely. I definitely have memories of Chuck rolling. So, but I mean, since then, I believe he quit smoking, and
he's in good shape.
Yeah,
actually, I ran into him a little while back. I helped him out with a little woodworking project a few years ago. He's doing good.
Nice. So I think
he's doing great.
Now I'm trying to pinpoint where these shows were at.
Oh man, you're good luck.
I mean, there was like carpeted wall and stuff. I know this was from the first show we played, because I think I still have this picture.
Yeah, I think we're in the garage down in Olney, Illinois.
And remind us again about why we ended up in Olney, because.
So Olney, Illinois is a little town downstate Illinois, kind of near the Indiana border. And there was a band that was from there that had come up and played some shows called Toucan Slam.
Mm-hmm.
And they were a cool, weird, silly band, and really nice people. And somehow through Underdog and them and shows, they were, and the Fireside probably, they would come up and play. And so, yeah, we ended up being friends with them. And when we got Be Reverse together, they invited us down for a show. I don't think there was any particular special occasion or anything, but I remember we just gotten going. They called up and said, "Hey, is there a band that you guys got going?"
Yeah.
And we jumped on it.
Well, I do remember you saying specifically, like, I don't want to play my first show in Chicago.
Oh, yeah. I think I was weird about that for some reason.
Yeah. What was it just?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
I know.
I don't know. I probably was, well, I mean, I guess it's sort of part of the broader story of, where we were at at that time, like in my arc of getting into bands and also just growing up as a person, whatever else. And, I was still, I don't know, I would say I was still in a phase where a lot of my identity got wrapped up into the band I was in. Um, part of that was enthusiasm and all this other thing. Looking back, it was sort of like, why were you, I wonder why I was so focused on that. But it faded during the reverse, and which was a positive development.
Yeah.
But I think I must have just had some hang up about something then.
Sure.
So thank you all for going along with me on that indulgence of whatever weird idea I had at the time.
I mean, at the time, honestly, I thought yeah, that makes sense because obviously, it kind of takes away the pressure of this is the first shows with your new band since 8 Park, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I think I wanted to get away from that because, well, and we talked about this tons of times during the band, and it still holds true, is that, I don't know, like the purest way for someone to appreciate what you do is if they don't know anything about you, it's a blank slate.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you're going to make your music, you're going to do your art in front of them. They don't have any idea who you are, what you did, or anything else. And then if people dig it, they dig it. And if they don't, there's no preconceptions about stuff. Now, it's silly to look back and be like, who cared that I was an 8 Bark and might have come to the show with, that was probably the hang up I had.
Sure.
I was like,
working through that.
Yeah. And looking back on it now, I would have been like, dude, who cares? It's fine.
Yeah.
But at the time, I guess it was something that mattered to me. And again, it was silly. But I think, thank you for reminding me. I'd forgotten that.
But I think it turned out to be quite an adventure because, it was it's also home of the White Squirrels, which,
home of the White Squirrels.
And I think that's something I learned about you as well, is like that as far as like where we were playing, it's like there's, you kind of figured out what this town is known for, what city this is.
It was fun to get into it. Like it's a quirky thing about it.
Yeah.
And also like, I don't know, it just felt like a really good DIY show because those guys in that band, I mean, it's a dinky town, like several hundreds of people. Is there 1,000? I don't know, maybe. Sorry, Omi, if I got that wrong. But they were like really that, hey, we're, some kids from nowhere, but we're making it. We're making a scene. We're putting a band together. They were going on tour, and I liked that. I sort of wanted to celebrate that and be part of it. So I think that was what drew me to that as a first adventure, and it kind of set the tone for what we did as a band later.
Yeah, and I felt like we win the hearts and minds that night. I felt like the
whole garage.
Yeah, and then afterwards, it was like this. We went to somebody's house where we were going to sleep at, and we're like celebrating, that we had our first show, and then of course
it was a great time. And those guys were always solid.
And I remember the drummer, I forget his name, but he played a marching band snare.
That's right.
Was like would start from here and like go down to the floor, and he had like this. I don't know how he was able to get a stand to.
He sawed off a stand and made like his own little baby shorty stand. And
I think I played it. I mean, I had to. I think we did end up playing a show with them again a year later, and I think I ended up using his drums or something. And I just remember like almost like breaking my hand just because it was just like the rim was like like I couldn't. Normally I like to have a little lower, little bit of what is it? Like kind of like that wiffle ball bat effect.
Yeah.
And then of course the Mullets and Mustaches show that we did
a few years later. Right. This is
whoa.
So these I think this is some of our before pictures where we're showing how we had grown out our hair.
Yeah.
The end of the hair mission.
Yeah, there we go. That's the picture there.
And then we cut our hair stupid.
Yeah.
And there it is.
We kind of look like Black Flag 80s era right there.
Yeah, there
Just,
you go.
yeah. I mean, no, we definitely, I mean, I think one thing about us is when we got to something, or if we were, if we put our minds to something about it, we like did it to the hilt no matter what.
That was stupid and fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
And I think I still have these pictures, but this is us in St. Louis.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we were.
I believe you.
Yeah, because there's Josh and there's Ezra.
Yeah. Right.
And then, and in fact, the Volatiles. Those were another like another band that we like became friends with immediately. And I think our very first tour we went.
Yeah, we did a few shows with them.
Yeah. Oh, of course. I think I know these. This is from Indiana, from Valparaiso.
See, I love Angel that you are remembering things that I have totally forgotten. I mean, like as soon as you say them, they come back. But
yeah,
it's a funny thing with memory, and you remember certain things and forget other things. At least
I mean, I'm the
thanks
same
for
way.
Filling in the gap.
Oh no. And in fact, some time ago I met somebody who said that show that we played in Valparaiso was their first show they ever saw.
Oh, okay.
So
really cool.
And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is from what was it, Frankfurt, which was our second show that we ever did.
Okay, yeah, I remember that show.
That was the show where they had a mic stand that was made out of a vacuum cleaner. You remember?
God.
Yeah.
See, I would have forgotten that detail. Now you say it, I'm like, oh yeah.
And we were playing with what was that band? They had a song called Schaefer's Beer. Apostles on Strike.
Oh yeah.
And those guys were maniacs. I remember. I think it was one of those where they were watching us. It was like those guys were watching us. It was like just the band, and then we got off and watched them. So
there are a few maniac stories in that band.
Oh yeah. There's that's the vacuum cleaner mic stand right there. Oh lordy. And then who's this helpless guy selling merch?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Oh, that was...
Wow. No, this is definitely. Oh, and this was in Champaign. The red. I think it was the red snap, or was it the red herring?
Oh, I think partially says in the back. There's a few more pictures of that later.
Oh yeah. Oh, and then this was one of our big shows. This was Elmhurst, opening for the Boll Weevils.
Oh yeah.
And I
at Elmhurst VFW.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's where it is. All the chandeliers, right?
If I'm not
going to say, that's a fancy looking basement.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sometimes we play some palaces, sometimes we play some shitholes. In fact, I think I remember that show in particular because for some reason, I had a bout of insomnia, maybe because I was so excited to play this show that I did not sleep all night.
Okay.
And of course, Veraverse, we all had microphones. I remember that was something else that you were like very like we should all have microphones. We should all sing. We should all participate. Which I was like, oh, I don't.
Which was great.
Yeah,
I thought that was fun.
But for that night, I think that was the worst mistake for me because I was just like out of it, just exhausted and saying. I think there's a recording. Somebody recorded like a soundboard. There was a sound guy that.
So what, you're like blathering between songs and stuff?
Yeah, for some reason, like I just.
Oh. See, I don't remember that either.
Ooh.
You shouldn't have said anything.
Hey, and I think this is still St. Louis. Yeah. There's like, what was this place? Anonymous?
Could be.
Oh yeah, this was there's Amy. This was at Columbia, Missouri.
Yeah, that hall in Columbia.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah, I think I still have a picture of that somewhere.
I don't remember. I remember being in this room, but I don't know where it was.
Oh, St. Louis.
Oh, okay.
That was at what is it? It was one of the Volatile.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was that house show. Right.
Which that was the first time we ever played.
It was like across from the park. Right?
Yeah.
I remember that place.
Oh yeah, more St. Columbia. Man, the 90s were something else. And some of these, what's going on over here?
Again, this was kind of a random pile that got assembled, so I don't think there's anything.
Oh, Michelle, there we go. Oh yeah, and there's the mailing list. There's this is like Wow. Some of these I haven't really, I feel like I've seen a few of these and others I haven't. Um,
There's a bunch of Scallons pictures that are coming up that we shot that we used on the record.
Now, do you still keep in touch with Sean Scallon?
I don't. I had kept in touch with him a bit. In fact, actually, when Fourth Rotor went to Europe the second time in 2005, he actually went with us and he roadied.
Oh, okay.
Which was kind of awesome.
Wow.
And he took a lot of great pictures. And it was great to connect up with him. But now he's still doing like show promotion stuff in Ottawa. And but I haven't sort of talked with him. I ran into him a bit later too. He came through Chicago for a weekend. There was some festival show thing. I think it was one of the Hideouts festivals that they had done, and he came through for that.
Okay.
So, but it's been a while. I ought to connect back up with him.
Yeah, I remember running into him on the train outside of what was it? It was like outside of the Pitchfork Fest. So, yeah. Oh yeah, and then of course you would constantly abuse your Rickenbacker, but you kind of knew how to, like. Didn't you get a lot of people saying?
I didn't break it.
No, you never broke it at all. But yeah, like there would be guitar players like, "Ooh, you're about to snap that thing." It's like, I know what I'm doing, man.
Amazingly, I didn't break it.
All right. Well, while I'm thumbing through this, I do want to ask you, as always, and I ask this to everybody that comes on, what are your first memories of us meeting, or what was the first time, or what any?
Right. So it was in that church basement in Evanston, where I guess it was the Geezers.
Mm-hmm.
And you were in the Hee Hee Wives, and I don't remember what the Hee Hee Wives sounded like, but I don't think they grabbed me. But I just remember going, "That drummer's great." You were just like, you were charging way past. I'm like, these guys are lucky to be hanging out with that drummer because he's carrying all the weight. No, you were like, super into it and lively, and it was like, that's really cool. And I had drummers on my mind because Patrick and I had been talking about trying to get a band started. So, yeah, and then I introduced myself to you afterwards, I think, and got your info and stole you.
I mean,
it was a great.
I was poached, although I was kind of like, okay, I just need to get poached at somebody's going to recognize that I have talent. I do have and this is going to go a few years back to the first time. Well, we never met face to face, but I don't know if you remember this, but I had interviewed you for a school project in high school.
What?
Through Douglas or through Tim Kinsella.
I don't remember this, and now I feel terrible.
No, it's fine because I mean, this is like.
Why wouldn't I remember that?
So yeah, I had to do a class project to interview somebody.
No, I feel terrible.
No.
Tell me about.
Oh, I mean that's why I'm here.
Tell me about the significant moment in your life that I forgot.
So I mean, I just remember. Well, I remember. I didn't feel like I was a good enough interviewer at that point because it just was like. I was asking kind of like generic questions, but it was like.
Did we do it in person?
It was over the phone.
Okay, well, that helps. Because then I never saw you.
You never saw me, and it was one of those, for those who remember, you had to get the suction cup microphone.
Yeah.
And actually, I did it at the Kinsella family house.
Oh, okay.
Because he was the one that's like, oh, I know Douglas Ward. I'll arrange an interview. It was like, ooh. So and I mean, it was. I don't know. It was like 30 or so minutes, and I'm like, I think it was okay.
I'm sorry, I don't remember. I don't remember it.
I don't. Oh, here we go. This is the shot that made it onto the. Actually, I think that's a good one. But then I just saw this picture, which I'm like, whoa, intense.
They're both good. Yeah. Those are Sean Scallon pictures.
Yeah, the great Sean Scallon.
Yep.
Who helped us out when we first went to. Well, you obviously worked with him before, but. I think
he's great.
Yeah, he was
one of my heroes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
oh, I mean, I even at that point I'm like, oh, he's not even gonna remember me, but
You were right. Sorry.
hey, we made a better introduction.
That's right.
So,
That's right. We had a second chance.
yeah.
I totally forgot that.
But yeah, so that's it. Yeah, I mean, and then of course, you were right before I came into the picture. You and Patrick. I mean, like, what was the birth of the band that would later become V Reverse? I mean,
Right.
before.
So 8 Bark had broken up, and I was bandless, and I needed to be in a band. And it had been, it's like anything. One thing ends, you got to heal, you got to think about it, but it was on my mind. And Patrick had moved to Chicago. I'm trying to remember when, but he had heard about Underdog Records as being a fan. He was in Pennsylvania. I think he just graduated high school and whatever else. And so he moved to Chicago and was then part of Underdog Records collective and doing stuff. And then we were just talking about, he played, I played, we hit it off. So,
and of course he was in Trepan Nation or Trepid Nation or he was either out. He was in the band, but then he
I think he. Yeah, did he play with them for a while?
Because that was when he came, because he was in Pennsylvania.
I think that's right. That's right.
And they were supposed to go on this tour, and I remember particularly.
Yeah, now that makes some sense, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But no, yeah, he just, him and I hit it off. We were just looking for people to put it together, and I was playing in the Geezers, but Geezers weren't. I don't know. I was in them, but sort of temporarily in them or on the side in them, because they had people come and go, and they needed somebody for a while. So I was kind of just sort of filling in, but I wanted to be like my band where I was writing songs and else. So that was on my mind. And then, saw you in the basement.
There you go. In Evanston. And that was a wild show. Like I think I mentioned earlier, the opening act, which
somebody got naked.
And then of course we played our set, and then Geezers played with Flamo. The combustible trombone. They would line the horn with rubber cement, set it on fire. Lots of fun. Yeah,
we all lived.
Yeah, and exactly. And I think I was telling before that I remember that night in particular because I met you, and then my band. That was the last time that the He Wives ever performed.
Right.
And we kind of went our own separate ways, and it was very like symbolic. Like, okay, like I think this is finally maybe the end, but I don't know. I'm just whatever.
And they were like high school buddies of yours.
Oh yeah. We went to high school together. Right. And it was, we were still playing, but it was like I could definitely feel like, I was looking for more. I was looking for like more of an adventure. I was definitely like, kind of like, I'm going to be working retail, and I want to do something else. But I also, I love music, and I've been.
Yeah.
So.
And it's funny, the Tim Kinsella connection, because I'd forgotten that you guys knew each other from school and stuff, and then I knew him just from Captain Jazz and that kind of stuff. But I'd forgotten that. In a way, he was a little bit of a bridge. Just a mutual friend that sort of like, connected stuff. Obviously got you to interview me that I forgot.
Oh yeah, I know he hooked it up, but I mean, it was also he was another person that is kind of like show. I mean, at that point, those guys were, they were already doing it. I mean, they were like not even out of high school yet, and they already had a record out.
They were really young.
Yeah, so it was kind of like, at that point, I'm like, oh man, I feel like a has-been already. But I mean, I'm like, whatever. I think by the time we started, by the time we even had a name, because it took us a while. I remember that night too. Do you remember that?
Yeah, we were hanging out. Was it your house?
Yes.
Yeah. Down in the basement, like you, me, and Patrick.
Yes.
And we were just like going through 10, 100,000 names.
Yeah.
What a nightmare.
And I was trying to remember why you guys came up to Wheeling to meet, because I was working up in the burbs
We just
somewhere.
wanted to hang out or something.
Right. I think you were just looking for another, like, yeah, and we went to the basement and we
hung out in the basement. I remember that.
Yeah, wow. Okay, now it's all coming back to me.
Yeah,
So so another question I do like that I always ask is so I've already asked you about our first meeting. I'm gonna just jump around here. So obviously you've had a lot of friendships over the years. What would you say is like the recipe for like a long lasting friendship for you?
thinking of ones that I have that are successful and then figuring out why, or just things that I should have done that I didn't do.
Well, you can go that way too, because like that can also go into like what are the things that when that you wish you would have known when you were younger about situations, about people.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot about awesome people that have come into my life and then have gone out, not through any, ill will or drama, but just, you sort of drift apart. And there's lots of people that I still talk about today, respect, they're around, and I'm not hanging out with them. And I feel bad about that. I think it happens to everybody. And, part of like a little bit with you and me, it's just like I bump into you every few years here and there, and I'm always like, man, why don't I ever hang out with Angel?
Yeah.
And so I guess I guess I'm feeling guilty about friendships that I didn't maintain or I didn't nurture. But I guess that's the secret. I mean, I guess the people that I'm friends with are people that, it's too easy to drift apart. And I guess the ones that I do more regular things with, I go out of my way to, I get off the couch, I'll do the inviting, I'll make that move where instead of waiting for them to give me a ring or get in touch with me. I think that's the thing, because if two people do that and then you just drift apart. Obviously, if you're in a relationship where you're always the one inviting somebody else, that's tedious too.
Oh, yeah.
But, you've got to figure out what's 50-50, and then you've got to do 60% of it.
Sure.
And then it'll reciprocate if you do it.
Yeah.
So, I guess it just comes back to when I've been the best at friendships, they're ones where I've gone out of my way to show an interest in what they're doing. You make your friends feel like they're heard and they're interested.
Yeah.
If we've all known people that always want to get you into their life. Come into my world. This is my world, and they never ask about what the person's doing. It's tedious.
Sure, that's tiring. Yeah.
So, but I guess that's something that I've learned over many years is that it's like a basic principle you have to remind yourself. Show deep interest in the other person's life, and it'll come back to you. I don't always do it, but when I do it, it's that I guess gets the best result, And then the other thing is try not to beat myself up and feel guilty about friendships that drift. Sometimes it just happens too.
Sure.
But, there's always a case to reconnect or reignite it,
And that's what the show is about. That's what this is. And since we've been doing this for about a year, it's like, because I definitely had I definitely started off when I was younger, kind of like wanting to have as many friends as possible. You're just kind of filling your life with like cool people to surround yourself with. But then after a while, it's like, they're either like sucking your life source out, or they're not being there for you. And then then I had a few things happen last year that just like, all right, like I gotta assess who are the people that mean the most to me. And of course, doing this as a way to like not only showcase people that I find super talented, amazing, but also people that I have a long history, and especially music. I
Yeah.
mean, we've
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that always seems to be the connective tissue with a lot of people in our lives, and whether it's playing in bands, mastering, whatever, just even letting people stay at your house if needed. Just it's like a
Well, that's been one of the most interesting things, and we were talking over making dinner about this earlier. Is that was one of the weirdest effects of the pandemic. I mean, it affected everyone weirdly, but especially for us that were 95% of our friends circle and everything else was all in bands and shows and music.
mm-hmm.
And so it was very easy there's a lot of people that I respect and love and are super cool people that I never saw outside of shows and bars. Because you're going out into the show and, you'd have a good conversation with such and such. And in the back of your mind, you're like, I'll run into him in a few weeks at this other show. So those direct things of like, do you want to go get coffee with me? You never did this with some of these people. I never did. And suddenly when pandemic and quarantine, all that crap happened, threads cut. And there was all these people that I didn't have a relationship outside of these shows and these things, which I just assumed like everyone that was going to go on forever.
Sure.
And it made me realize, oh crap, I need to not just rely on that, because here we are, that thing is gone for years, like it was.
Yeah.
It was really dramatic, and so there really was some soul searching during it of going, man, when things get back to where I can run into people again, I got to make sure that with these cool people that I respect and are fun and I want in my life, that I try to connect with them without relying on, I'm going to see you at that show next week, and that kind of thing. Because it was gone, and I realized that was like, that was it. That was the only way that I was connected to them. That was silly because.
Yeah.
So
no, it definitely should. I mean, yeah. I mean, what were like where were you at when things were starting to get shut down, or you weren't working outside, or were you working from home, or?
So I used to work for myself for about 20 years doing IT consulting, small businesses, and I had just accepted a salary position with one of my biggest clients. I got rid of my IT consulting, and I was just starting to be a salary guy, which I was kind of dreading. And right when the whole quarantine thing happened, so that wasn't actually bad. It was actually kind of good for me because I had a regular job, and the company kept going, and I could work remotely. So I was fine in terms of employment, but then it was just the social isolation of like, all my friends are in bands and shows, and that's gone.
Yeah.
We had just played a show a week before down in Carbondale, right before the thing happened. That was the last show.
Was that Lost Cross?
No, it wasn't at Lost Cross. It was at PK's. But
which I do have some fond memories of that.
I had some cool Lost Cross stuff to talk about. But which that place is still going.
I heard,
it's still going. But anyway, so it was. It was isolating and weird for everybody, and I'm not. On the balance, it worked out, but that aspect of it was surprising to me, that I just was coasting on this, like, I'll always run into him next week at that other show,
right? Because you were going out. I mean, you would say like before pandemic, you're averaging almost like 3-4 shows a month, maybe, or
not that much. And honestly, it had slowed down too, which is sort of another thing. Like I don't go to as many shows as I used to. Drilling for Blasting, my band was playing out, but we weren't playing 3 times a month or anything, maybe once a month here and there. So my show going was slowing down, but I was still relying, I'll run into that person in the back of my mind. And that's the other thing too, is people get older, whatever. Somebody say, they go to less shows and this and that. And if that's my only connection to them, well, that's weak.
Yeah.
But it just was like suddenly revealed that like,
Mm.
That's gone. And I remember a really cathartic moment was, so about 2 years into the pandemic, the first show I went to, I mean, there were some people that were doing shows here and there, but it was, we shouldn't get together in places, the
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
thing, right?
yeah.
Well, Lucas Sikorsky, do you know Lucas? Guitar player, bass player. He was in a band, Polish Gifts. He played bass in Wig, a zillion other bands.
Okay,
Hey,
I know the name.
great
Yeah.
guy. He put together a Generator show. I think it was Pershing Avenue. Somewhere on the south side, light industrial area. There was a viaduct, and underneath it, he said, "We're doing a Generator show Sunday afternoon."
Oh,
And Permanent Residue, Jake Levy's band, and a few other bands um, set up and played. And it was like the first coming together of this scene of people that we had no contact with for, over 2 years.
mm.
And but it was safe because we were outside under a viaduct,
Mm.
and it was freaking fantastic. It was just goosebumps from seeing all these friends that had just been cut off. And it sounds so silly now because it's like, well, why didn't you just text them? Why didn't you call them? Why didn't you? But again, we had that relationship. Everyone had that relationship of, our bands will play together, or we'll run into each other at that bar, we'll see each other at that show.
Yeah.
And so seeing all these people in person for the first time was really powerful,
Yeah.
And it was like, also it was on the dirt in a viaduct with empty beer cans and broken needle and a used condom and, a PA system, whatever thrown together. But to me, it was like heaven.
Yeah.
Because it was like, yes, this is it. This is punk rock Carnegie Hall. Like, this is it. This is where you want to be. It was like, it had that magic again that I'd missed for so long.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was both memories of, really wanting to get back into playing shows, but also reminding me, I got to connect with all these cool people, not just in this context.
Mm. Yeah, I know what you're saying about not texting people or calling, because what I did, and Athena can attest to this, that I was doing my best to like reach out to people that people within my circle, because the first month we're like, we don't know how this is gonna go. Like, are we gonna make it? It was a lot of.
It was crazy.
And I had a few friends who wouldn't pick up my text or even respond to a text or a call. And I got one friend in particular, like 6 months later, is like, "I'm sorry, I haven't written or texted you back. I can't do the phone right now." And
Right?
And I get it. It was for some people, it's like they want to not just that kind of conversation. They want to have the physical, but also and everything else. So.
Right. But yeah, it was just a big revealer for how my and Cammie's social life was so connected to bands and music and shows, which is in a super positive way, but also, it really gave us a perspective on what that meant, and that so much of making the music and doing it is not just the making of music and doing it, it's all the people. It's that community, that ocean of people you dive into and bump into, and how much we loved that and took it for granted. And then when it was gone, you're like, oh,
yeah,
this
may not happen again,
or whatever. Right? It made you really step back and think about what it meant to be involved in it. Yeah. And I would say too that the other aspect about that, now that we're talking about it, sorry if I'm going on a tangent, but and you may have had this experience too, or people like, oh wow, well, as a musician, or not, as a full-time one, but now you had all this time, you could probably written a million songs and made 50 albums, and especially people were pointing to Drilling for Blasting, which was Cammie and me. Our whole band was in the same house. We had our practice space in the basement. They're like, didn't you guys make 3 albums worth of stuff and write all this junk? And the answer is we did not. We barely played together, which is not everybody's experience. But for us, and for me, certainly, I realized something about myself is when I'm writing music or coming up with stuff, I'm always imagining playing in front of people. I mean, like I'm writing a riff and I'm thinking how the song is going to go, and I'm imagining I'm performing this in front of people. This is going to be fun to do. It's just in my mind. I'm standing in front of people writing it, and when that was not on the table, I wasn't writing songs. I couldn't because I knew I couldn't anticipate that. Like, well, who knows if it'll ever happen again? We're all going to die of the plague. But for a few years, it was just like, yeah, that's not going to be a thing. And only until shows started happening, things like that, did I start writing my own music. Now, I was playing guitar the whole time and doing music, but not like we didn't write 3 albums. And but so I don't know how that was for you. Like,
well, I mean, I think the last time a while back we talked about that too.
Yeah.
I think for us for the Geezers, we once it was kind of all right, it's safe enough to practice. I think it was a good 4 months or 5 months until we actually got in the same room. Not even longer, maybe 6 months, and then we started working on our Year of the Rat record,
right?
Which we already had some of those songs kind of put together, but then and then of course our last show was at this vintage shop in Humboldt Park. The weekend that I think the Northern Italian borders had closed.
Oh yeah.
It was just like one after another. Borders were closing their walling off, and we're like, oh wow, and we're in this crowded vintage shop playing a show, no masks, because there was no
right.
We weren't quite sure about what this was going to be.
Nobody knew.
So didn't get sick until later. But yeah, that's another story there. But yeah, I mean, we managed to kind of do this as and actually at that point I was kind of getting sick of playing shows. I was like, the work that gets involved, this, like, it's moving gear. I mean, it's the getting your little time on stage is that's the treat right there. That's what getting to play to people. But after a while, I'm like, and after that show, I'm like, I'm going to take a break. And then the world took a break.
So it was your fault.
I said it out loud. I said, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't play. I think I need to take a break from playing live for a while.
Release the plague.
Yeah. So there we go. But no, that's great. I mean, because I feel like a lot of people throughout the pandemic.
But it sounds like getting back to the Geezers and getting back to working that stuff was kind of like was maybe a bit of a lifeline for you, because it was, a way to get back to normalcy, and it was a thing you went to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and then just, we were at that point, we were like, we just wanted to do something. And, we were blessed that we have the place up down the street here, Wholesome. That was kind of like our, it was like our clubhouse for that. I mean, there was no other place to hang out, so I'd go there.
Sure, right.
We had a turntable. We'd play records, hang out, and then maybe do some jamming or something. But it was just, it was it was definitely, it was a very interesting time, and I'm glad we're here.
And then, but at the time it was weird. But the whole experience, did make me really think about, what doing music means to me, and it just gave me a chance to think about what I wanted to do, going forward. So, and just how, like, the social aspects of it, being in a community of creative people making things is the most exciting thing about it. It's the bands playing to other bands part about it. It's obviously not doing it professionally or whatever all else, but that's the part that's exciting too. And I think that's another reason why that spark wasn't coming to me during that time, because I wasn't being inspired and fueled by other bands and seeing other people perform and this and that. Whenever I'm at a show, and certainly if it's a show I'm not playing, and I'm watching people and somebody's inspired me, I start doing this. I'm a terrible audience member where, just to myself, I start getting inspired. I start hearing parts of songs that start making me think about writing a riff. I come up with lyrics sometimes of this song part I made up. attaching to something the band is doing. So half of my head is suddenly going off doing that. But it's more that I'm just excited and inspired by watching somebody play, and I wish I could be up there, and I wish I could, So I start doing it in my head.
Yeah.
And I love that energy. And certainly when we were in quarantine, pandemic times, that wasn't coming back. So
it's almost like you have to be in that kind of like where it's different individuals and
where I'm just being exposed and fed this other stuff. And it's not a competitive thing. It's just an inspiration thing. It's just like, oh man, I love how that one part of that song went, this band did, and really surprised me. And wow, if I did something like that, I could do this. And now I'm running down that road.
Yeah.
That's what drives me,
So you're not one of those like people like just be in your room and just like, oh, I just came up with the no. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
It's all reactive, and it's always like responsive to cool creative things that I'm experiencing. So it bounces in and it bounces out. And without that,
it's like a symbiotic thing where it's like,
But I directly learned that about myself, during that time. That I appreciate that I was able to sort of articulate it and experience it literally. I mean, it was always happening, but I didn't really think about it.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Yeah.
So now here's something, I guess, kind of relating to that. But is there anything that at where you're at now that you could have told your 18-year-old self that might have made things a little easier going up in life? I don't know. I mean,
how much time do we have? I mean,
we have enough juice. Okay, yeah, we're good.
I mean, you knew me then, although, like I said,
You were 27 when if I remember correctly.
Okay.
So you were,
26, 27, something like
which
that.
Which is crazy to think that when I was at your age, when I first met you.
Yeah.
Different experiences, of course. At that point, I think by the time I turned 27, I kind of felt like an adult, but still like still in the
Well, I guess one of my regrets in my life is that when I was younger than that, late teens, certainly early 20s, I got pretty intense into things, and I don't know, I definitely had some anger management issues at times. I mean, I guess everyone did, but it's just sort of growing up and figuring all that out. But certainly then when I got into the band thing, and I was like dog with a bone. I was just into it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of putting my identity into, like, I am Doug Ward of ID Under, and then I was Doug Ward of 8 Park. And it mattered to me in this way that just sounds like I'm talking about an alien now, because I don't feel that way anymore.
Mm.
But I did then. And so I really got into it. And I think I got kind of intense, I think, for some of the people around me. Not everybody. I still have friends from back then. But, I just remember things that, like, I wouldn't wish I hadn't done, or... So I would have gone back and told myself, calm down. Don't put your identity into it. Now, would I have listened to myself? I probably would be like, get away from me, old man.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
You don't know what you're talking about, old man. But
that's interesting, putting your identity. I guess in a way, making music is kind of. I mean, there's a certain ego, gratification, but then there's also the idea of the communal. Like we're all in a group where this is like a.
Well,
which, that can get a little dicey, right? Or at least a little complicated.
Well, so when I talk about that sort of story of myself and kind of where my head was at, Viewerverse plays a big part of it, because, early on I was like, I'm in this band, and, it's 8 Park. Not that I was being competitive or trying to win anything, but it was like, that's who I am. And, I could only imagine myself being in one band at a time and giving my whole creative thing to it. And I'm just doing this band, and that's it. And when 8 Park ended in kind of an ugly blow up, I was blindsided by this happening. And I was resentful, and I was really kind of screwed up about it. And I regret that. A few weird things happened, but I regretted that. And then when we got V Reverse going, I loved being in the band. I was super intense about it, but you know, I was like, it was more about the camaraderie and the fun. The four of us were a great team, and we had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so when V Reverse came to the end, when you and Adam were like, yeah, we don't think we want to do this anymore, we're going to do something else, Patrick and I were more kind of on the same page, where our initial reaction was like a muscle memory reaction, where I was like, those guys, they're ruining this thing, and my identity is in this, and then I had this little memory of, remember how you got all screwed up with 8-Bark, and you had your identity wrapped up in that thing, and you resented it and were bitter, and I remembered that, and I said, gosh, I don't want to do that again. And what's more important than being in V Reverse is being friends with everybody.
Yeah.
And so, I took a deep breath, and I was like, I wish you guys weren't leaving. I wish we weren't ending it, but it's fine. And here we are now, right? I mean, I had good relationships with everybody from V Reverse.
Sure.
And that was a point of maturity for me.
Because you weren't able to do that even with prior bands.
And now with 8-Bark, things got weird, and I was squirreled up about it.
Yeah.
But that was a real maturing point where I'm like, it's just a project, and enjoy what happened.
Yeah.
Not everything lasts forever.
Yeah.
And when it comes to an end, go your separate ways and do something else.
Yeah.
That was a big moment for me. So, so I tell that story about where V Reverse was important in that, because the way it ended was the good way. Just happened, fine. And I went on and did other things. Now I don't have any of that with, I don't, you do a music project, you put your all into it and enjoy it, and it could last a week, it could last a year, it could last 10 years, who knows?
Yeah.
But so.
I mean, that was a tough break. I mean, it wasn't an easy one, obviously, because we put quite a lot of work.
Right.
We definitely, I mean, it was definitely, there was some challenging times, whether traveling, the normal stuff. But I think, I mean, coming to say that, neither of us wanted to do it was definitely the hardest thing. And I know it was, because I mean,
you knew how much, certainly speaking for myself, and I think Patrick was kind of on the same page, how much it was disappointing to us. I think you guys knew that.
Oh yeah, no, it was.
But we figured it out amongst ours, and it was fine.
Yeah,
so
it's like it's like a breakup. It's like breaking up with a.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it's not the end of the freaking world.
True.
And I had to learn that lesson the hard way, and I'm glad I learned it.
No, absolutely, and I mean, obviously, you seem a lot happier about, or at least feel more like light,
at peace about the whole thing.
At peace, yeah.
And
for me, obviously, like afterwards, and that's a whole other story. But it was like I had to do a lot of learning. I had to kind of get beat up in the rock and roll world just to see what it was like, and there you go. But I'm still playing because it's
right. But you played with a bunch of different people. You ran around with the Vindictus for a while.
That's a funny story too.
Yeah. But we all went through our things.
Ended up being on a record that is to this day considered, it's like a cult classic, I guess. Which for me, I'm like, if for those who are not familiar, Hypnopunko, Vindictives. It's become like this. For some kids, I've had people come up to me and be like, "Oh, like it's like you were on that Vindictives record," and I get people once every other year say, "Weren't you in V Reverse?" Yep. So it's like, two V bands kind of doing our thing. So yeah. No, that's great. I mean, and here we are.
And here we are. But and it's funny too. And everything took a while. There's a maturing process. I don't know if it's getting older or just having more experience with it, whatever else. But it's even kind of funny because the next band that I got into and did stuff with Fourth Rotor, which was Cammy, myself, and Jake Levy. Again, we had a great camaraderie, great band. That band went for like 6 years, something like that, 6.5
And you
years.
guys went like everywhere,
We
right?
did a lot of touring too.
Yeah.
But at the end of that, it's funny, I say the end of it because Jake approached Cammy. I said, I love doing Fourth Rotor, this and that, but I want to do this other band, Canadian Rifle, as it turned out. And although there wasn't, Cammy and I were like, we wish we could keep going on this. The funny thing is, the decision was, well, I guess we have to end Fourth Rotor. We weren't going to get another bass player.
Yeah.
Because it was just like Via Verse, it was the sum of the personalities. But the funny thing is years later, even 5 years after that, the three of us are still great friends, and we do stuff together all the time. And we were hanging out and talking. We're like, why didn't we just keep doing Fourth Rotor and do other things too? And we're like, yeah, why didn't we? Why didn't we? And the answer is it still was a little bit of a holdover of, it wasn't like our identities were as wrapped up in it, but there was a little bit of holdover, like, well, if it's not all in, then I guess we can't do it. But it's silly. We all think it's silly now. It's like, well, we could have just kept doing that band and gone on to other things. Who cares? And had we all been 5 years older or in a little bit of a different place, it's probably what we would have done. So it's funny how those things mature, your relationship with a band or a music project and your identity. Excuse me, and your identity,
Yeah.
They're all intertwined in interesting ways. And so that's a long ass answer to your question. But I would have gone back and told myself, don't wrap your identity so tightly into this thing. It's not as important as other things, like enjoying it while you're doing it, staying friends with everybody, don't fire so hard and burn up, outlast it and go on and do more.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a great answer, because I never, you just made me think about identity, and I guess that's what a lot of what we, as musicians, artists, with craftsmen, it's you're putting your stamp on it. And, for me, I guess I take it for granted, because it's just like, for me, it's just like, I'm just doing it. I'm like, it's not even like a thought, but then it's like, oh yeah, I'm putting my stamp in it. And, I do kind of treat it as a sacred kind of thing too, as well,
Sure.
Because,
But I think the difference is that you get to, before it was the project was the most important thing. Later, I can be like, well, I can be Douglas Ward, and I can play in this band, and I can write this song, and I can do this project. And it's still like I have the identity is actually where it should be with me. I'm comfortable with that. It's not like I have to be part of this thing. When that ends, I end, or it reflects on me. That's the shift. I finally realized, just be you and be okay with what you do and enjoy that.
Yeah.
That's the lesson, I suppose. So.
All right. I got maybe one or two more for you.
All right.
What was your first musical experience? Like, whether it was a song or a show or something that led you to get to want to play music, I guess, or what attracted you to music, I guess?
I mean, whatever. I always liked listening to music, and I got into the Beatles, when I was 13, 14, whatever. I was friends with a guy whose mom had this whole collection of old 78s from the 30s and 40s, mostly from the 40s. And I would go over to his house, and we would just play them and play them and play them and play them. So I have this bizarre, deep knowledge of like show tunes and big band tunes and novelty tunes.
Oh.
I just listened to like hundreds of these records when I was like 10, 11, 12, something like that. And I got into the Beatles. But what really inspired me to do it was I was a mopey teenager, about 14. I got all depressed and like a lot of weird people. And I would do these things where I would take off and just roam around at night. Like I would do this sort of straight line thing where I'd be like, I'm going that way for a mile. And I would climb over people's fences and walk in alleys and sneak around people's houses just for the adventure of it.
Mm.
Anyway, I'd be all thinking about my weird, being a mopey, whatever teenager.
And where was this at? In,
I was out in the west suburbs.
Oh, okay.
I lived on Hinsdale.
Hinsdale, that's right. I remember, yeah.
So I would wander around at night. Anyway, one night it started raining, and I ran under a tree. I was in the backyard of some house. And in the house of this backyard, there was a back porch. And there was some guy who was just sitting out there with a guitar, acoustic guitar. He's just by himself, and his feet were up. And he's just playing one song after another, a Beatles song, this and that. No one's around, and he's just like, he was pretty good. And I'd never really, I don't know, it was just like, it was so cool that like this guy could sit there with a musical instrument and play these songs and amuse himself and just do all these different things. And it was somehow in my weird head at the time, it was like, man, I want to do that. Like that's an outlet I want to have. And yeah, it just, I want to learn how to play guitar. And I went out and got a guitar and started taking guitar lessons and went from there.
Was it acoustic, electric, your first guitar?
My first guitar was an electric, a Cort, which is a Cort Les Paul copy.
Classic. Oh, yeah, actually.
Yeah, it was pretty cheesy. But yeah, that was my first guitar. And then there was a little music store in Westmont, Illinois, where a guy did music lessons. And he was kind of cool. We did a little bit of like the Mel Bay guitar method for like about 2 weeks. And then he's like, what do you really want to do? I'm like, here's a cassette of This Is the Minutemen. And he's like, oh, here, I'll show you how to play that. I started getting into that stuff. So he just started teaching me songs, and I started learning whatever punk songs and stuff.
Crazy.
And yeah, that's what got me going. But yeah, I'll never forget that. It's just something clicked where like I was just envious of like, I want to express my mopey depression by playing guitar to myself.
Yeah.
And then eventually other people.
And then find other people though. Yeah. And then it was all from roaming around late at night and
just being a weirdo.
Yeah.
Being a weirdo.
I mean, yeah. I believe me. If I can watch myself when I was, in my teens, I'd either die of embarrassment or laugh at myself. But
yeah, exactly.
I mean, mostly laugh at myself. But
right.
Let's see. Am I missing another question here? No. I think we're good.
All the knowledge is good.
Yes. Any last words before?
Let's not let it go so long next time.
No, absolutely. No, and it's on camera now, so
it's on the record.
We'll do check-ins. I have your number. I mean, I'm not going to say no to it because I'll just what would be nice, and if anyone's watching this, Patrick, Adam, let's all get together. Let's hang out. Maybe, we can. We'll start off with a hang. How about that?
There you go.
We'll just hang.
Anyway, yeah.
But I will take a hug from you, though.
That'd be rad. Hey, brother. All right, man.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for being on As We Go Along with Angel. Here we are.
Are you kidding me? This is great.
This is beautiful.
You can come back every week and
awesome
cook me tilapia. I love it.
Maybe we'll do something else. Maybe some meat. Do you eat meat?
I do.
Okay.
The moon and the cosmos and all that kind of thing has worked out so that it's Adam's and Angel's birthdays today.
Yeah, they are the exact same age.
Together they're 44, you figure it out.
I always do private shows.
The song's a wake-up call for everybody who thinks it's okay just to go bumping into the walls and everything is okay. Warning, attention, announcement. Start from you. Warning, attention, announcement. Announcement!